Vayeshev, and he dwelt. Ninth reading from the book of Genesis. Outline of Torah portion. Yaakov loves Joseph more. Genesis chapter 37, verse 1 to verse 4. Now Israel loved Joseph the most of all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long-sleeved robe, vari-colored tunic. Genesis chapter 37, verse 3. Torah says that out of the 12 children of Yaakov, Joseph had a special place in Yaakov's heart. Binyamin was the youngest of the 12, yet Joseph became his father's favorite son. He was also the first son of Rachel, the wife he loved. Yaakov made a special long-sleeved robe for Joseph. Father's special love for Joseph was evident to all. And the older brothers began to hate him and became jealous of him, and their relationships with Joseph deteriorated. The Torah says that it reached a point where they couldn't talk with him in a civil manner. Joseph's dreams. Genesis chapter 37, verse 5 to 11. Joseph had two dreams, which he shared with his brothers and his father. Joseph said, "We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field, when suddenly my bundle got up by itself and stood upright. Then your bundles came, gathered around mine, and prostrated themselves before it." Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. Joseph narrated his second dream. He said that there were the sun, the moon, and 11 stars, prostrating themselves before me. Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. Torah says that Joseph's brothers hated him still more for his dreams and for what he said. They were also jealous of him. But Yaakov kept the matter in mind. Joseph was just a teenager, aged 17, at the time of these circumstances. He had taken bad reports about Bilhah and Zilpah's sons to Yaakov. The brothers were aware of it. That's why they mocked him by saying, "Yes, you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing us around." Joseph lacked discretion, sharing openly the contents of the dreams he had with his father as well as his brothers, further aggravated their jealousy towards Joseph. None of them responded positively towards Joseph or believed that there was any significance to his dreams. Joseph betrayed by his brothers. Genesis chapter 37, verses 12 to 28. One day Yaakov sent Joseph to check on the brothers and their sheep, and to bring a word back to him. Brothers were pasturing their flocks in Shechem, several days' distance from Hebron, from where they lived. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, he found that they had moved on. Upon inquiring from a man, he found that they had moved on to Dothan. So Joseph went to Dothan and found them there. They spotted him in the distance, and before he had arrived where they had already plotted to kill him. They said to each other, "Look, this dreamer is coming." Genesis chapter 37, verses 18 and 19. They plotted to kill their brother Joseph and to throw him onto a water cistern and report to their father that Joseph was killed by a wild animal. Reuben intervened and suggested, "We should not take his life. Don't shed blood. Just throw him in the cistern." But Reuben intended to rescue Joseph later and restore him to his father. So Joseph arrived to be with the brothers. They stripped off his robe and took him and threw him into the cistern which was empty. While they were having their meal, a caravan of Ishmaelites and Midianites passed by, and Yehudah said, "There is no advantage in killing him and covering up for his blood. Let's sell him to the merchants." They listened to Yehudah, and they sold Joseph for half a pound of silver shekels to the Ishmaelim, and they took him to Egypt. Joseph's brothers were not careful. They were short-sighted. They allowed jealousy and envy to grow in their hearts, which led them to commit sin against Joseph and against God. We need to protect ourselves from the spirit of hatred that makes way for the works of the enemy. Yeshua HaMashiach said to love, he said, "Everyone will know that you are my Talmidim by the fact that you have love for each other." John chapter 13, verse 35. Joseph sold to Potiphar. Genesis chapter 37, verse 29 to 37, 36. They took Joseph's robe, killed a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. Genesis chapter 37, verse 31. They dipped the special coat, the coat of many colors that Yaakov made for Joseph, in goat's blood, and brought it to Yaakov. They deceived Yaakov by pretending that they found the robe. Yaakov tore his clothes and put in sackcloth around his waist, mourned for his son for many days. Though all his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, he refused all consolation, saying, "No, I will go down to the grave to my son, mourning." And his father wept for him. Genesis chapter 37, verse 34 and 35. Joseph's brothers were blinded by jealousy and envy. Their actions put Joseph's lives in great danger and also brought great grief to their father. Torah says he refused all consolation. But Adonai was with Joseph. In Egypt, the Midianite sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, a captain of the guard. Genesis chapter 37, verse 36. Potiphar is described as a courtier of Pharaoh. In Hebrew, courtier means saris, meaning an eunuch. Yehudah and his daughter-in-law Tamar. Genesis chapter 38, verse 1 to verse 30. Genesis chapter 38 begins with the story of Yehudah and his family. Yehudah had 3 sons. First son, got married to Tamar. Was evil from Adonai's perspective, so he killed him. Genesis chapter 38, verse 5. Yehudah said to Onan, his second son, to act as the Levir, a surrogate for his dead brother, who would beget a son to continue Er's lineage, also to give a place for Tamar in the family. Onan knew that the son would not be counted as his. Also, Onan would have to incur a considerable economic sacrifice according to the inheritance customs. So he interrupted coitus with Tamar, spilling his semen on the ground. God punished Onan for his action by death. Since both his sons, and Onan, who were married to Tamar, died, Yehudah was afraid to give his youngest son, Shelah, to Tamar. As a result, Yehudah wronged Tamar. According to the customs of the Near Eastern culture, if a man has no son over 10 years old, he could perform the levirate marriage obligation by himself. If that does not happen, woman is declared a widow and free to remarry. Yehudah sent Tamar to her father's house and to remain there till Shelah grows up. Time passed, and Tamar realized that even though Shelah had grown up, she still was not being given to him as his wife. So she devised a plan to secure her future and to also her place in the family line. She tricked Yehuda to impregnate her and secure her place in the family. The in-law rules, Leviticus chapter 18 verse 15 and verse 16, are suspended for the purpose of the levirate, as the levier is only a surrogate for the dead husband. Yehuda and his daughter-in-law Tamar. Genesis chapter 38 verse 1 to 38 verse 30. One day Tamar covered herself with a veil and sat at the entrance to Ainim, meaning to open one's eyes. Ainim was on the way to Timnah. When Yehuda saw her, he said, "Come, let me sleep with you," and offered to give a kid for her service and his seal and staff as a pledge. So he gave them to her, then went and slept with her, and she was conceived by him. Genesis chapter 38, verse 18. Later on, Yehuda sent the kid through his friend to find the woman to retrieve the guarantee items back from the woman. But his friend couldn't find her. 3 months later, Yehuda was told that Tamar is pregnant as a result of prostitution. Yehuda replied, "Bring her out and let her be burnt alive." Genesis chapter 38, verse 24. When she was brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law, "I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. Determine, I beg you, whose these are, the signet, the cords, and the staff." Genesis chapter 38, verse 25. Then Yehuda acknowledged owning them. He said, "She is more righteous than I, because I didn't let her become the wife of my son, Shelah," and he never slept with her again. Genesis chapter 38, verse 26. Tamar secured her place in the family of Yehuda, and Yehuda's posterity was also secured. She gave birth to twins, Perez and Zerah. Genesis chapter 38, verse 29 to verse 30. From the line of Perez came King David. 2 sons were restored to Yehuda, who lost 2 sons. Tamar was assertive of her rights and was willing to be unconventional. Joseph becomes successful. Genesis chapter 39, verse 1 to verse 6. Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelim who had brought him there. Genesis chapter 39, verse 1. Joseph has now become a slave in the land of Egypt. Torah says that Adonai was with Joseph. In fact, even his master saw how Adonai was with Joseph and how Adonai prospered everything Joseph did. From the position of a favored and a most loved son, Joseph became a humble slave in an Egyptian household, away from his homeland, away from his family, away from the comfort and the recognition he had. Joseph did not become bitter or got depressed of what happened to him, but he worked diligently in everything he did. He worked hard to earn his master's trust and favor. Joseph was honest and trustworthy. Being a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph had heard the stories of his father and forefathers about the God who kept his covenant promises, and was confident that the God of his forefathers will see him through. Adonai's grace and favor was on Joseph's life, that even his master recognized the blessing on Joseph's life from the rest of the slaves with him. It was God's favor on Joseph's life that enabled him to be a manager of Potiphar's household. Joseph even prospered while in the household of his master, the Egyptian. Torah says that Joseph pleased him as he served his master. Potiphar appoints Joseph manager of his household, and entrusted all his possessions to Joseph. Because of Joseph's right attitude and because of Adonai's favor in his life, God blesses Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. His master put everything under Joseph's care. So he left all his possessions in Joseph's care, and because he had him, he paid no attention to his affairs, except for the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome as well. Genesis chapter 39, verse 6. The temptation of Joseph. Genesis chapter 39, verse 7 to verse 23. In time, the day came when his master's wife looked at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." Genesis chapter 39, verse 7. Just as Joseph managed to build his life back again, he was faced with another challenge. His master's wife tried to seduce him. Joseph faced a test of his character and faithfulness towards God and towards his master. Joseph was an honest man, so he gave an honest answer. Torah says Joseph refused her. Joseph's reasons were, because my master has me, he doesn't know what's going on in this house. His possessions are under my charge. I am equal to my master, and nothing has been withheld other than his wife from me because of the trust he has on me. It's a wicked thing, and it is a sin against God. Torah says that she kept pressing him day after day, but Joseph refused to sleep with her or even be with her. When she couldn't have her way with Joseph, she falsely accused him of trying to seduce her. She accused Joseph to the rest of those in the house. She waited till her husband came home and accused Joseph of trying to seduce her. She used Joseph's robe that she managed to grab when he fled from her as false evidence. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, in the place where the king's prisoners were kept. And there he was in the prison. Genesis chapter 39, verse 20. But Adonai was with Joseph, showing him grace, giving him favor in the sight of the prison warden. Genesis chapter 39, verse 21. Dreams of the cupbearer and baker. Genesis chapter 40, verse 1 to verse 23. Sometime later, when Joseph was in prison, Pharaoh's officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, were put in prison, for they made offense to him. They were put in the same place where Joseph was kept. Joseph became their attendant while they remained in prison. One morning, Joseph found them looking sad. When asked, they said, "We each had a dream, and there is no one around who can interpret it." Joseph said, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell it to me, please." Genesis chapter 40, verse 8. The men related their dreams to Joseph. The cupbearer said that he dreamt of a vine with 3 branches, with clusters of ripe grapes, which he pressed into Pharaoh's cup and gave the cup to Pharaoh. Joseph said, 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, the cupbearer will be restored to his position in the court of Pharaoh. But remember me when it goes well with you, and show me kindness, please, and mention me to Pharaoh, so that he will release me from this prison. For the truth is that I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and here too I have done nothing wrong that would justify putting me in this dungeon. Genesis chapter 40, verse 14 and 15. The chief baker too shared his dream. There were 3 baskets of bread on my head. In the uppermost basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds ate them out of the basket on my head. Joseph said, 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will release you from the prison and put you to death. Just as Joseph interpreted, within 3 days both of them were released, and the cupbearer was restored to his position, and the baker was put to death. Cupbearer forgot about Joseph and did not mention about him. So Joseph remained in prison, but acquired a reputation as an interpreter of dreams.